Welcome this evening to learn about dolphins of the Chesapeake Bay with the Chesapeake Dolphin Watch. We're so happy that we have Amber Fandel and Lauren Rodriguez here to share their knowledge and expertise about dolphins in the Chesapeake Bay, which I didn't even really know that we had dolphins in the Chesapeake Bay, but I guess we do.
Me neither.
Please, questions are highly encouraged. Utilize the chat box. As they come up, we'll see if we can stick them in and sneak them in here and there as the presentation's going on, but we will allow time at the end for as many questions as possible. Again, thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Amber and Lauren. We're so happy and excited to learn from you this evening.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight. It's really an honor, and we're so glad that so many of you are joining us this evening. Lauren, do you want to give a little background on yourself, and then I'll get started?
Sure. So as I was telling some of the people at the beginning of this, I'm a newbie to the Chesapeake Bay area. I came here from Michigan to study bottlenose dolphins and do my master's degree with our advisor, Dr. Helen Bailey, who's a really wonderful scientist who's done a lot of this work on the marine mammals in and out of Maryland's area. So me and Amber are both students together, working on individual projects with dolphins in the bay and marine mammals in general. So yeah, thanks for having us. This is super exciting for us.
Yeah, and my name is Amber. I've been in the Chesapeake Bay region since 2017, working on both dolphins in the bay and dolphins just offshore Ocean City. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So today we are here to talk to you about Chesapeake Dolphin Watch, our community science application, and generally about dolphins and dolphins in the bay. And I should say that we are based at the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Sciences, Chesapeake Biological Lab. So kind of a mouthful there, but we're an offshoot of the University of Maryland. We're based down at the mouth of the Patuxent River. And you can come down there and visit us at our open house events when, COVID is over. Alrighty. So please feel free to use the chat box. We'll try to keep an eye on that, and we'll have lots of time for questions after. Alrighty, so we're going to cover a bunch of different things tonight. We're going to have a little bit of an introduction to bottlenose dolphins. We're going to be focusing on those dolphins tonight. Those are the dolphins that are found in the bay. We're going to talk about dolphin acoustics. So those are the sounds that dolphins make, and we're going to learn a little bit more about those. I saw some chats earlier. I know some people, including Evie, already have a good idea about this. And we're going to talk again about our Chesapeake Dolphin Watch app, dolphins in the bay specifically, and some of the studies that we're working on now and working on in the future. So our lovely bottlenose dolphins here, these are the most common dolphins around, not to be confused with the common dolphins. These are the dolphins that you think of, and you might be familiar with, Flipper. There are lots of cartoons and things like that. They are marine mammals, so that means that they have to breathe air, which is really handy for us because that means they come up to the surface and we get to see them. Down below, you'll see a picture of some folks out in a boat. This is down at the Thomas Johnson Bridge down by our lab, and that's down off Solomons, Maryland. These creatures are pretty big. They can weigh in between 300 and 1,400 pounds. So that's a pretty big animal. They can be between 6 and 12 feet in length, and they can live 40 to 60 years. So these are big, huge animals that live a really long time. Lauren was talking a little bit earlier about how they eat a variety of fish and squid, lots of different food groups here for them, and they're what we call a generalist feeder. They're commonly found in groups, right? So as you can see in the photo here below, and if you've seen them out in the water, I'm sure you didn't just see one, you saw many of them together. They're very social. And they use acoustic communication, so they use sound to keep their groups together and to talk back and forth. They're very, very social. They like to travel together, chit-chatting all the time. And we just wanted to have a little reminder in here that we should never feed or harass the dolphins. So you'll see, we'll show some videos later, but I want you to just keep in mind, no one in the videos, and certainly we do not encourage anyone to feed the dolphins or to approach them at all. It's okay if they come up to your boat or something like that, but we don't want to harass them. And actually, it's a crime. They're protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. So we want to make sure that we're being respectful of them and following the law. Alrighty, so let's get into those exciting dolphin sounds. That's kind of my area of specialization here. And I know some folks are already familiar with some of the sounds that dolphins make. We have lots of different sounds from them. And this is really handy because it means that we can throw a little recorder in the water and we can kind of spy on them. And so what we learned is that they have those echolocation clicks. So right, just like a bat, they're making those sounds that go out into the water, reflect off an object, and come back to them and give them information about where they are and what's in their surroundings. And this is really helpful perhaps at night when it's dark, right? And they're still moving around, or perhaps in an area in the bay where it's really muddy and the visibility isn't very good. It's especially handy then. We know that dolphins communicate with one another, and to do that, they use whistles. So if you look down here, this is what we call a spectrogram. And this is a visualization of the sound that dolphins are making. So you'll see here these vertical lines, the green ones, these are echolocation clicks. So those are those clicks that they're sending out and receiving information back. And then the squiggly lines down here, these squiggly lines are the dolphins talking to one another. So they're saying all kinds of things, most of which we don't understand, but we'll go into a few things that we do know about those calls. And if you want to turn up your volume here in a second, I'm going to play these sounds for you, and I'll play it twice in a row, and then I'll start talking again if you want to turn your volume back down. All right. So I want you to listen for the clicks. And then when the clicks get really close together, it kind of sounds like a squeaky door opening and closing, and then you'll hear the whistling in the background. Okay. Okay, so pretty cool. We have lots of exciting sounds going on there. So we hear them echolocating. It sounds like they might be feeding because we have those buzz sounds. So what that sound is the echolocation clicks getting closer and closer and closer together to where it sounds like a buzz. And that is when the dolphins are approaching their food. They start clicking faster and faster to hone in on the animal so that they make sure that they capture it, especially, like I said, if it's a time when it's dark or they can't see very well, they can use those echolocation clicks to hone in on their prey. And then we heard those squeaky whistles in the back, them just chattering away while they're eating. Alrighty, so a few years ago, back in 2015, we were putting some underwater microphones called hydrophones out off Ocean City. And before we did that, as good scientists, we wanted to test our instruments. So down at the Chesapeake Biological Lab, we have this great research pier. It's at the mouth of the Patuxent. And we put our instruments out there for a couple days just to make sure that they were working. And when we took them back in and looked at the data on those, we found that there were dolphins. And it might seem silly now, but at the time, we didn't know that there were dolphins in the Chesapeake Bay. We knew a long, long time ago they used to be here, but they hadn't been here for a really long time. So that was really exciting for us. So now we have lots of these hydrophones, these underwater listening microphones all over the bay. So we have our microphone here at the mouth of the Patuxent. We have a microphone, hydrophone down here at the Potomac, at the Road River, and over here in the Eastern Bay. And what these specialized instruments are listening for especially is for those echolocation clicks. So those are really high frequency, really hard to hear clicks, but they are very distinct for dolphins. So when we hear those, we know that dolphins are around. All right. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the information that we've gotten from these specialized microphones. And what this is showing you here is along the bottom, we have the dates. So this is starting in May, going into June, July, all the way until October here. And we have 2 years, 2017 in blue and 2018 in green. And then along the y-axis here, we have the number of hours that dolphins were detected in the Potomac River over the course of a day. So you can see here, we get this big spike in dolphin detections around June into July here. And then they kind of taper off at the end of the summer and into the fall. And you'll see here that during this day in 2018, we heard dolphins about 22 hours of the day. So that means that they were really sticking around and having a good time hanging out in the Potomac River. So if you're looking to see dolphins, that might be the place to go. And we just wanted to give a shout out to Fred Jett. He's a great fisherman down at the mouth of the Potomac who's allowed us to put our listening device on his pound net since 2016. Okay, so we know that the dolphins are hanging out in the bay and sometimes for a really long time, right? So we decided to look at those clicks and see what are they doing when they're there. And because those clicks are so helpful and because they use them to hone in on their prey, we were able to determine that actually when they're hanging out in the Potomac River, for about 50% of the time that they're there in July here, they're eating. So I don't know about you, but if it was a buffet and I had access to that all day long, I'd stay around too. And so it looks like that's what they're doing here. So this is 25% of their time up to 100% of the time up here. And these are the months along the x-axis here. So you can see that especially in July here, almost half of their time in the Potomac River, they spent eating. So that's a pretty good reason to come into the area. Now, we also heard, in addition to those echolocation clicks, we heard some of those whistles that the dolphins were making, right? And as I said, they use those to communicate with one another. Now, some great researchers have found out that there are a certain type of whistle called a signature whistle. And these signature whistles, they repeat in a certain pattern, and that lets us know that a certain individual, a certain specific dolphin is around. So these whistles, you can see down here, these are 2 different whistles from 2 different individuals. So we'll pretend that this whistle came from this dolphin here and this one from this dolphin. And what they'll do is when they meet each other in the wild, and dolphin groups can be big or small, but they're always splitting up and coming back together. They're what we call a fission-fusion society. So as they split up and come back together, they're basically just saying their name over and over and over again to everyone that they meet and to all their friends. And this helps make sure that the group stays together. And so using these signature whistles, we can tell some really interesting information about these dolphins, where they are, and what they're doing. All right, so I'm gonna listen to some signature whistles here. You can see this is the same whistle repeated 3 times. So this dolphin is saying its name 3 times in a row so that people know that that's the dolphin's name. So I'll turn this up nice and loud, and I'll play it twice just like the last video. Okay, so pretty cool. So we figured out that this is this dolphin's name. So now what do we do with that information? Now we want to find out, using that dolphin's name, since they say it over and over again all the time, they're running around just saying, you know, Evie, Evie, Evie. They're just saying their name over and over again. We can actually figure out when they come to different areas because we're listening for them. So we can determine if dolphins return to the same location, when they're there, what are they doing? So you can see here that this dolphin, say Flipper, we first heard its whistle in July of 2018, and then we heard it again in August of 2018. And we know that we heard it again because we heard that same whistle. So how many individual dolphins can we detect? So as I said, we're monitoring all over the bay, and we're still looking at a lot of these data. It takes a lot of hours to look through all of these recordings for those whistles, but we're recording off Ocean City. This is where the offshore wind energy is. The offshore wind energy area is slated for development. So we've been looking at dolphins out there to get a good idea of how many there are out there. And actually out there offshore, some of you said you've seen them off Ocean City. We recorded more than 1,500 dolphins, unique dolphins out there. But in our Chesapeake Bay here, up here at the Road River, we've recorded at least 20 different dolphins. And down here in the Potomac, more than 300. So that's a lot of dolphins coming into the bay. And to answer our question, do we see the same dolphins again and again? The answer is yes. So each of these different colors here is a different dolphin. So, and along the x-axis here, again, we have the date. We start back here in January of 2016, all the way to January of 2019. And these are all the different dolphins that we saw more than once. So there are more than 140 different individuals in here. And actually, we have even more now, since we haven't updated this figure in the last couple weeks. But you can see here that some of the dolphins were sighted or heard just a couple days apart, like here. And you can see that some dolphins were first detected all the way over here in January of 2017, and then all the way in December of 2018. So that's a really long time between those two whistles. And still we were able to tell that that dolphin came back into the area. So that's pretty cool. And we saw them, we also heard dolphins from, sorry, what was that? Okay, so we've been able to figure out that actually some of the dolphins from offshore Ocean City are coming into the bay, and we've been able to determine which ones are doing that thanks to this signature whistles. All right, so I want to take a little break here and maybe just take 2 or 3 questions. Bronwyn, do you want to maybe, I haven't been monitoring the chat, but do you want to say perhaps a couple questions from the chat that I can answer?
I was monitoring the chat. We just got one.
Okay.
Everybody needs to keep their microphones muted right now, and we're going to utilize the chat box. Somebody's unmuted. I'm trying to find them. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So one is, how can you tell the different dolphin sounds from different dolphins?
Yeah, good question. So some researchers figured out that actually when they use these signature whistles, they say them in a certain pattern. So we know that they say these names, these signature whistles, they repeat them at least twice, and they say them within 10 seconds of each other. And oftentimes they'll say them over and over and over again. So that's how we know that this is the specific whistle that is their name. Now, they make all kinds of whistles and all kinds of sounds. Let me go back to this one here. So you can see that there are some other whistles going on in here. Now, these are not signature whistles. They don't look exactly the same. And that's how we know that this is just them chattering. We haven't figured out what all that means yet. We just know about this specific whistle.
There's a question. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna do the, is there a leader in the group from Joe?
Oh, good question, Joe. And the answer is we don't know. So probably not. We do know that, like I said, these are fission fusion societies. So there might be a dolphin that's in charge, but what is likely happening is the group is splitting apart and coming together over and over again. And this happens regularly throughout the day, even throughout the hour. So they're very social animals, but they also kind of like to do their own thing sometimes. So they'll split off, go do their thing, and then come back to their group.
Another one, do they have different emotions?
Good question. I don't know if we have a good answer to that yet. It's a little hard to understand if animals like dolphins have emotions. The answer is they probably do, but it's hard to really understand what that looks like in a dolphin. We would have to understand that probably from their communication, or if they're doing any sort of behavioral activity. Yeah, we don't know yet.
Another one is, how do they hear each other from miles away?
Oh, good question. So in water, sound travels really, really far. So actually, especially for large whales, we've seen that large whales, which have very, very low frequent, like deep frequency calls, can be heard from about 50 miles away. So the sound travels very, very far in the ocean. Now, these are a little bit higher than those whale calls, but they can still travel for quite a long way.
Okay, you want to go into our next part?
Let's go.
All right, my turn. So I'm going to be going over our volunteer scientist database called Chesapeake Dolphin Watch. And the purpose of this is to characterize dolphin presence in the Chesapeake Bay using individual sighting reports from citizen scientists like you guys. And so back in 2017, we started this database. Actually, our advisor, Helen Bailey, started it. And then Amber was working during that time for the acoustics data. And so when I came along in 2019 for an undergraduate research opportunity, I took the Chesapeake Dolphin Watch data and kind of analyzed the seasonal trends of bottlenose dolphins in the bay. So it's really cool that using sightings from people from all over the Chesapeake Bay, that we can get some really useful scientific information regarding the dolphins in the bay, and that can help us protect them and make rules on how to go about coexisting with them in the Chesapeake Bay. So as you see there on the slide, all of the little dolphin icons are the sightings that we've gotten from our Chesapeake scientists. So there's a lot, and you can see that they've utilized all of the bay. And so I'll kind of go into those patterns following some media. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that once we started Chesapeake Dolphin Watch, we got immediate response. Users were signing up and reporting all of their sightings. And now we have over 7,500 users and over 5,000 dolphin sightings over the past 3 or 4 years now. So that's pretty amazing that we can get that data just from people seeing the dolphins, not just us. So following this slide, we have some beautiful images that have been sent in to us of bottlenose dolphins in the bay. And we might even have some of these users with us in this meeting. So I think I saw John and Tony are some of our regular users. So if you've used Chesapeake Dolphin Watch, shout out your name in the chat and we'd love to see it. So we get the photos of dolphins, but we also get these really cool videos of dolphins. So we've put a few of these in the presentation for you guys all to watch. This one is a really lucky user, Ken V. He sees dolphins all the time on his paddleboard. You can play this one, Amber.
Okay, and as always, I'm going to play it twice here.
Oh, that was a little spotty for me. Did it work for everyone else?
I'll play it once more for good measure.
Okay. And then we can go to our next slide. This one is on the Great Wicomico River. We got this one in 2019. Do you want to turn your volume on, Amber, or your microphone so they can hear? Amber, could you unmute so they can hear the audio?
Oh, okay, sure, I apologize.
Yeah.
And
you can hear in this video the dolphins whistling when they come near the paddleboard. So if you turn your volume up, you can hear it once Amber plays it once again. So they were doing those signature whistles right under her paddleboard, which is really awesome that we can see it happen in live action. And that was really lucky for her as well. And, you know, like we said, these people aren't approaching the dolphins. The dolphins are being curious and coming up to them and exploring them. Similar with this video, dolphins are kind of little rascals and they like to go up to boats and ride the waves that the boats are making. And so this is an example right here, really exciting. The dolphins are coming up to the boat and these people obviously aren't chasing them.
They're right under there. Look at him right here with us. He's right next to the boat. He's right there. Yeah. Oh, there's one. They're right under there. Look at him. Look at him right here with us. He's right next to the boat. He's right there.
Yeah, so those were from all over the bay. And now I kind of will go in. Oh, you can go to the next slide. But that was just an example of the media that we get from Chesapeake Dolphin Watch users, which are really, really lucky. I haven't seen dolphins up that close. So now this is what I found out from the Chesapeake Dolphin Watch data overall. So aside from the pretty pictures of the dolphins, this is what is happening. So the dolphins, as you can see, just like Amber's data, are really highly occurrent in July and June in the summer months when the Chesapeake Bay is warmest and when the fish are spawning and there's lots of food. So we can kind of monitor that through the feeding buzzes, like Amber was saying. And so that is why we think that they're coming into the Chesapeake Bay, because it's relatively a safe area too. We know that bull sharks come into the bay and whatnot, but it's kind of sheltered from the rest of the ocean. So these dolphins, we're seeing the sighting reports start in about April, and then similar like the trend, they go up in the summer and then go back down at the end of the summer season. And then this next video kind of demonstrates how these movements are happening. This is from starting in June to December of 2017. This is what the dolphins did, or at least the sighting reports. So you can see that they're in the bay in June, and then it kind of goes down the Chesapeake as it gets to December. So they're leaving the bay rather than staying here all winter. So I'll kind of break this down on the next slide if it's a little too much. So in June, we can see, or actually in May, right before the summer starts, we see them coming in through the Atlantic Ocean inlet. So the dolphins are getting curious. They're starting to come in with their pods, and people are starting to see them in April and May. Then into June and July, we see a huge spike of dolphins, and we see like those dense sighting reports all throughout the Chesapeake Bay, even up near Baltimore and Annapolis, through the Potomac River, through the Patuxent River, through the Rappahannock River. The dolphins are just everywhere, and it's really exciting because people that live here all their lives are sometimes just, they don't know that there's dolphins in the bay. And so it's really exciting to see this many of them. So then after July into August, we see again, it starts dwindling down. It's getting a little too cold for them into September and October, when they kind of leave that upper bay area and start heading back down south. So we have to be very careful with this data, however, because here's some heat maps I created, which is kind of just seeing the aggregating patterns of sightings. So each year you can see the purple and the blue and the orange, all different years, we see a dense spot around the Rappahannock River. So we have to be very careful with that, because are dolphins really coming to the Rappahannock River that often? Or do we just have a dedicated user, which is through further investigation? There's a nice old man that's at the mouth of the Rappahannock, and he reports dolphins all the time from his backyard. So we just kind of have to be careful with when we're analyzing these sightings, especially because it's not guaranteed that this is exactly what the dolphins are doing, but it is what our citizen scientists are doing, which is also super helpful, that we can have that outreach with people around the Chesapeake Bay to study these protected animals. So my project, as I said, I came here as an undergraduate, and I used all of these sightings data from 2017 through 2019. You can go to the next slide. I studied all of these sightings with their relationship to various things in the Chesapeake Bay to see kind of what affects their presence, like what affects these sightings statistically in like a scientific way, to get some numbers out of this. So the map on the right I made, these are all of the sightings that I used in my project. So from 2017 through 2019, every one of those dolphin points is one of the data points I used. And then the purple, yellow, and green sightings are representing the environmental monitoring sites where I took temperature and salinity and tidal information from. And so those are colored by portions of the Chesapeake Bay, because as you know, the salinity changes throughout the Chesapeake Bay, starts a little saltier near the Atlantic, and then it goes up fresh near all the riverine tributaries. And so kind of doing an overall analysis wouldn't work, because the salinity is so different. And so that might affect them differently. So I found out that all of these things, temperature, salinity, and tidal phase, are related to these dolphin sightings that we've gotten. So statistically speaking, when there's warmer temperatures above maybe 70 to 75 degrees, dolphins are more likely to be spotted. And then when there's varying salinities, as we expect, because dolphins don't rely on the salinity, but their prey, all these little fish, are intolerant to certain salinities. So the dolphins are following kind of the fish and what the fish are doing. They're not necessarily affected by the salinity in the water, but the fish that they want to eat are. So they're going to where they're going. So also these spring tidal states, there's two types of tidal states in the bay, spring and neap. Spring is when all these water come up to the shore, and then neap is when it all retracts. So these are, you know, controlled by the moon, and there's all these tidal phases throughout the day. But the two main ones, spring, neap. Spring kind of brings all the fish near the shore. And so the dolphins have a really easy place to kind of swim around and eat in. So I used all of these kind of environmental parameters to create a predictive model for bottlenose dolphin sighting presence. And so this is a little mathematical, but basically I was able to take the environmental data and predict the relative dolphin occurrence using just the environmental data, not the citizen science, but they matched up. As you can see on that graph, the red line is my predictions from my statistical model, and then the blue line are our actual sightings, and they're relatively similar, which is super useful for monitoring a really protected species like bottlenose dolphins, who are kind of, we need to monitor them in a hands-off approach because we don't want to bother them. So using predictive models and other techniques that are hands-off are super useful, which brings me to my future research. You can go to the next slide. I'm going to be using genetic techniques to kind of extract DNA to see what animals are in the water with dolphins. So the picture that you see on the left, this is kind of a conceptual diagram of the whole idea. You take a scoop of water and then you run it through these advanced genomic sequencers, and then they give you what species have been in that area in about the past 2 days, because the DNA degrades rapidly in a few days. So we know the relative occurrence of dolphins and fish and crabs and whatnot just from this sample of water. So for this summer, my project plans on taking all of these water samples throughout the bay to kind of see what species are co-occurring with dolphins and what exactly they're feeding on. Because like Amber said, we're not entirely sure of what they're doing in the Chesapeake Bay or why. So the whole idea is just to get citizen scientists to send us the samples, we'll process them, and then figure out the fish and the dolphin presence.
Alrighty, so just to summarize, I know we went over a lot of information with you here today, but we just wanted to remind you what we've talked about. So we are looking into and have the ability to understand dolphin behavior better using acoustic or sound information. So we're looking at those specialized signature whistles or the dolphin names. We're looking at those echolocation clicks. And then when the clicks get really close together, those are called the feeding buzzes or foraging buzzes, and we can look at those to find out when and where they are eating. And thanks to both of the sound data and all of our community science users and Lauren's analysis, we know that dolphins are most common in the Chesapeake Bay between April and October, and especially around that June-July period. All right. So if you want wonderful dolphin content from around the bay, around the clock, you just want to watch some cool dolphin videos, we encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We're at DolphinWatch_CB.
And Instagram.
And Instagram, I'm sorry. all the social media. We also have exciting new opportunities for citizen community scientists in the upcoming months. And some of those opportunities include collecting water samples for our environmental DNA, Lauren's analysis. We might have some exciting opportunities to record dolphins in the Chesapeake Bay. We also wanted to just remind you one last time to review responsible marine life viewing guidelines, and these can be found, we can drop the link here in the chat, but when you register on the app and within the app, you can view these guidelines at any time in case you need a little refresher. And if you do see stranded animals, so these are animals that might be on the shore or look like they're maybe not doing so hot or might be wrapped up in some fishing line or something like that, the numbers to call for those folks to come and take care of those animals is on here and in your app as well. And then if you want a ton more information about everything that we're looking at, we're about to publish our findings for 2020. So if you want to learn some more about what we found last year and how that differed from the other years that we've been looking at these dolphins, those findings are coming soon, and you can find them here at that website. And so many acknowledgements. We wanted to thank all of you, the Chesapeake Dolphin Watch users who submit your sightings and images, our donors shown below, the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, Chesapeake Biological Lab, the Chesapeake Bay Trust, Trax Software, who created the app for us, the Jessavanti Foundation. We also have so many volunteers that have helped us with this project. And shout out to Matt Ogburn and Michael Goodison at CERC. They've collected some great data for us, especially that in the Road River. And thank you to all of you. Please feel free to reach out to us on social media, shoot us an email. We love to talk to you all about everything going on in the Chesapeake Bay. And we are so thankful to be here and to have all of you as part of our team.
Thank you, Lauren and Amber. That was great. Maybe we can all come back together because the chat box is burning up with more questions.
Oh yeah, I see some. Should I just start shooting off some answers?
Woo!
All right.
Yeah, we got hands up. We got questions.
Yeah.
Let's go through some of the questions first. If y'all want to scroll back through and answer them.
Yep.
One question that kept popping up that I kept seeing over and over again: Are there dolphins in the Chesapeake Bay right now as we speak?
There possibly could be dolphins in the Chesapeake Bay. Mostly in these months, we see them down near Virginia. So kind of some stragglers from the Atlantic Ocean. They probably won't come up too far just because it is pretty cold in Maryland and Virginia and whatnot right now. So they probably don't want to go any further. So there might be some at the mouth of the bay, but probably not anywhere near, Annapolis, Baltimore, even Solomons.
And then everybody wanted to know where they went.
Yes, I did see that question. So during the winter, the dolphins, so there's two types of dolphins. There's the coastal ones, which are the ones we get visited by. And then there's the migratory dolphins, which kind of go out into the ocean, into the middle of the Atlantic. And so these coastal dolphins migrate up and down the coast during the year. And so during the winter, they're near Georgia, Florida, down there. However, they do have to compete with the local dolphins in that area. So their strategy is to come up to other areas during the summer and take advantage of all this extra food, because why not? Also with, climates getting warmer in northern areas, they can utilize more of this ocean up here near Maryland and even New Jersey.
And Donna wanted to know, are you seeing, is there an increase in the data because there are more people in the bay seeing them?
Yeah, that is definitely something we have to be careful about. So there's a lot more users on the western side of the Chesapeake Bay than there is on the eastern side of the Chesapeake Bay. So I kind of averaged across the whole section, the lower, middle, upper section rather than east and west, because we can't exactly know if those dolphins are really aggregating near a certain area or not. But this is the best data we have over such a large area of the Chesapeake Bay, from Virginia all the way to Baltimore.
And then a couple are interesting. Does the seeing the dolphins returning to the bay a sign of water quality improving? And then also with the boating ban last spring, have you noticed correlating to that?
Yeah, a couple great questions there. So we do know that the quality of the bay has been increasing. While pollutants and things in the bay could negatively affect dolphins, what we're probably seeing is a bit of a delayed effect to where the quality of the bay is improving, the fish stocks are improving, and then eventually the dolphins are going to come in and feed on those. So we do think that it's possibly an indication of an improvement of bay quality. We can't say that directly because we haven't looked at it specifically, but it's certainly something that's on our mind. And regarding the boat ban last year during COVID, we're looking into that as well. We were had some of our listening devices out there. It was a little bit early for them to be in the bay around March and April, but we're going to look at the acoustics, the sound, and see if we can figure anything out at that point.
Do you tag any of the dolphins to see where they go? That's what
We don't. No, we just try to use the sound to figure it out, and those specific signature whistles to learn more about specific individuals.
And how far away can they hear each other?
Pretty far. Yeah, we don't know exactly, but we do know that their hearing is very, very impressive. So they're hearing each other quite a ways away.
And then Keith wanted to know about white sharks and bull sharks that come into the bay. What's the interaction with dolphins, and do they any predate on the dolphins?
Okay, so I can take that one. So we're not entirely sure too on the co-occurrence of bull sharks and dolphins, and that's kind of what my genetic study is aiming towards, kind of to see, are they co-occurring, or are bull sharks coming at different times, or are they even foraging in the same place? So we're not entirely sure. Also, there's not as many bull sharks in the bay as there are dolphins, so it's easier to study the dolphins because they come in such huge numbers and huge groups, whereas bull sharks aren't social animals, so they kind of just swim alone around, rather than these dolphins are coming in pods of 90 to 100, where it's super easy to see them.
Glenn was interested in, do you hear any baby dolphins? Do they sound different?
Yeah, so these signature whistles are formed within the first year of their life. So the answer is we don't know. During that first year of life, they're kind of trying out some different whistles, putting their own spin on it, trying to figure out what their specific name is. And after that first year of life, it remains pretty consistent throughout their life. So yeah, if there are baby dolphins in the area, we're not necessarily able to tell them apart from the adult dolphins.
And do you have any thoughts on why some only visit once a year, or visit different seasons, or stay in the bay longer?
The answer is we don't know yet. Like Lauren said, we think that they're really coming in to feed, and that's what most of our data has looked at, and that's what Lauren's going to look into a little bit more. But as far as why some come in and others don't, it's possible that it could be a sort of cultural transmission, mothers teaching their calves, or different social groups coming into the bay. And we just don't know that yet. So some of the other things that we're looking at are dolphins from specific areas coming in. So are dolphins off Ocean City or further offshore, or perhaps what we'd love to look at in the future. I saw a question about how far do they range, and we're trying to work with some other folks in other areas to see if we have any dolphin whistles that are the same. How far are they coming from? Are they coming from way up from New Jersey and New York, or down from North Carolina? And so we're trying to look into that now.
And
I was just going to add to that answer, but just to remind everyone that dolphins are really intelligent, and so they can choose if they want, like maybe their pod's going into the Chesapeake, but they feel like going somewhere else, enjoying a different pod, then that's preference. And that's just like humans. Like, it's kind of hard to predict our movements too, because we have choices that we make, and that's not always easy to guess. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Oh, I see someone with their hand raised.
Glenn, go ahead.
How many dolphins have you heard in the Chesapeake Bay?
Great question. So we have heard so far, and we've only just started looking at this, we've heard over 350 different dolphins. And I'm saying we're just starting to look into it because I know that some of our users have seen individual groups on different days of more than 100. So we think there are probably thousands of dolphins coming into the bay. So we're just starting to take a look at that now. Good question.
And Melanie wanted to clarify that they're only coming in to eat and not use the bay as a nursery, or is that just too early in the data collection to know for sure?
They do actually use estuaries for nurseries. So we're not entirely sure about the Chesapeake, but there's been studies all over the world, especially in Australia. There's a lot of bays there with dolphins. And during the summer season is when dolphins are having their babies. And so most likely they're coming into these inshore, closer, refined areas, especially with changing salinities, which the sharks, some sharks can't go into fresh water. So if the dolphins are having their babies in these relatively safe areas, then, that makes sense to us. So we're assuming that since they spawn in the summer, that they're also using the Chesapeake Bay to kind of raise their young, show them how to forage in a relatively safe place.
And couple of questions on this protected status. Are they protected species? Are they an endangered species?
Yeah, so they are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which is why we're not supposed to go near them or disturb them in any way, and why that's a crime. And they are just a protected species. They're not endangered or anything like that, or threatened currently, but we want to make sure that they stay that way.
Why are Elle wants to know, why are dolphins so curious?
Like I said, they're just like us. So if the dolphins want to check something else, then they will. And that's why they come up to the boats and they come up to the paddle boards, because they want to check things out and see what's going on. Our collaborator, Fred Jett, who we mentioned, calls the dolphins the puppies. And it's because they kind of act like puppies. They're just swimming around, going where they want, checking things out, learning constantly. They're super social. So it's kind of nice to see such an animal just like us.
Is there a global database of their signature whistles that you're comparing them to?
Not yet. So this is a pretty new area of study, and I will say that getting these good recordings of wild dolphin whistles is a little bit more challenging than you might think. You have to have an area that it's good to record. You have to know where the dolphins are, which is always a question. We can't really predict that. So we would love to, and are starting to work with some other researchers to see, like I said earlier, where are they coming from and how far are they traveling? So the answer is not yet, but we're hoping that that there will be. I will say that there is a researcher based in Georgetown, and she is down at the mouth of the Potomac, where we have heard all those hundreds of dolphins. And she's looking at dolphin dorsal fin. So that's the fin on their back. And those fins are really unique because they act kind of like the signature whistles, or kind of like a dolphin name. And they can match those to dolphins from other areas. So she specifically is working on matching the identity of those dolphins from other areas like Georgia and New York. So we are working on that to try to get a better idea of who these dolphins are and where they're coming from.
Do dolphins have a melon-like head region like belugas for echolocation sensitivity?
I actually know that from my anatomy class in undergrad. But yeah, they do. And that is what they kind of bounce the echolocation clicks off of. So similar to bats have kind of a similar teeny shaped skull, but they have a part of their head that they can kind of process those sounds that they're sending out a click, it's hitting something, it's coming back and hitting their melon and kind of getting processed in their brain. So yes, they do, but it's not as pronounced as those beluga whales.
And Sam really wants to see a dolphin in the bay. He's got a paddle board and he wants to know exactly where to go and when to go see a dolphin. Can you help him out?
I suggest going in the early hours when they're feeding around 5 to 8 a.m. in those places like the Rappahannock, the Potomac, the Patuxent. Amber, any other suggestions?
Well, I would say, Sam, you can take a look in our app, and there are different filters on there, and you can figure out where the dolphins have been recently. So you can figure out where they were yesterday and the last week, and that might give you a hint as to where they perhaps are now. Tegan, did you have a question?
When dolphins are born, do they already know how to swim?
Yeah, mostly. So when they're first born, the mother will take them up to the surface so they can get that breath of air. And the calf will stay with the mom for about a year or so, sometimes a little bit longer. And she'll teach the calf everything that it needs to know. But yeah, pretty much as soon as they're born, they're ready to start swimming.
Do we ever see any carcasses of dolphins on the bay?
Yeah, we do sometimes. And sometimes that can give us some useful information about perhaps what they were eating. It can let us know, if they were hit by a boat or anything like that, what caused them to pass away in the bay. Um, but it's not something that we see terribly frequently.
Well, that's good. A couple
Um,
of questions on and how far up the rivers they go, and has any gone into the C and D?
I'm not entirely sure about the C and D, but yeah, they do go pretty far up the rivers. We've seen them, up the Potomac, up the Patuxent, up the Rappahannock. So just basically, if you go on the app, like we said, you can see them going all the way up there. They don't really stop. Also, I saw a few questions about advice for future marine scientists or marine biologists. I feel like me and Amber could talk about that a little bit too. So definitely don't give up and follow whatever you want to do, including marine biology. And my advice is just to read up about what you like and keep, immersing yourself in marine biology, watch movies and read books and look at other research that's been done. And, there's high school programs now where you can kind of interact with marine biology or ask your local natural history society or your local university. There's always people looking for volunteers, so I just think that definitely go for it and don't be discouraged and always be curious.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a lot else to add, Lauren. That was a great summary. It's a fun field to be in. Just keep learning. If you love it, spend your time learning about it, and especially now in a time of virtual seminars and things like that, there are lots of opportunities to learn. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask if you have the time and the ability. If folks need volunteers for any projects or anything. That's a great way to get involved and to start learning more about what's going on.
And get involved with the Dolphin Watch as a citizen scientist. And we can provide more information on that. Perhaps we'll have you come back as that program continues to evolve, and we're acting like a pipeline or a conduit, connecting volunteers to different community science programs so that we can work together to move the scientific frontier forward, and working as the eyes and ears and data collectors for the scientists who don't always have enough money to fund all the great projects and research that are out there. So we can help out with that. I think there's a couple of other ones. Let's see. Elle says, how do they sleep? That's a really interesting one for dolphins.
Does anybody in the audience know? That's kind of a fun one to talk about. Okay, so they actually, they so they basically sleep with half their brain off, and they always have to be swimming and moving. Yeah, so like Vass said, they shut down about half of their brain, and not seeing out of one eye and the whole thing, and they're still swimming around, and they usually do it socially in groups, so they're protected. And then they switch those sides of the brain so that they can get some rest while they're out there. And sometimes you can also see them just floating at the surface if they're in a nice calm area, and they might be sleeping there. And to Britt and Ben, yes, they communicate with each other all the time. It's their favorite thing to do.
And Ruan has a question about the microphone designs. And are you looking for different locations to put more microphones up and down the bay?
We are. If you have a great spot that's not too shallow, and you have somewhere to put it, like on a pound net or something like that, on a pier, we are always looking for folks to help us out with recordings. It's one of the more challenging aspects. So yes, feel free to reach out to us. They are multi-directional recording, so we can't use these specifically to localize or figure out exactly where the dolphins are. But yeah, more information, the better.
I see Mac and Allie is raising their hand. Do you want to ask a question?
I'm learning about global warming and stuff. I was wondering, are dolphins like all around the world, like the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean?
Yeah, excellent question. You're right. That's something that we have to think about, is climate change and how that's going to affect all these different animals. This species of dolphin, the bottlenose dolphin, is found all over the world. And so that's really cool, because some of the stuff that we're finding out here in the Chesapeake Bay, we might be able to use in different areas. And we're starting to learn how these animals are affected by things like storms, which will be, as climate change occurs, they'll be happening more often. So we're starting to get an idea about how they'll be affected by climate change.
All right, this has been wonderful. I look around here, everybody looks smarter than they did when we started, so you did a great job. Hopefully we can continue to work together. There were some questions about if we could do some field trips or some dolphin watching trips or something out on the bay. Even if you don't see a dolphin, it's always fun to be out on the water. You'll see something amazing when you're outside in nature, whether you're on the bay, on the side of the bay, or up on top of a mountain. But this has been wonderful. We've all learned about dolphins in the Chesapeake Bay, have a new appreciation for them, and also understand that we don't know everything. There's still so much out there that we're still learning. And so there's still room for us to go out exploring and to find the answers to the questions. Everybody, thank you for joining us. If you like what we're doing and want to support our work, please consider joining our community of the curious as a member. And as a member, you are kind of a community curator of all of our collections and our educational efforts. Do a donation, buy a raffle ticket, support the Dolphin Watch program. And we hope to see you at one of our upcoming programs online soon, and in person, hopefully soon too, where you can come out and play with all of our cool toys that we have at the museum.
Mm-hmm. I want to say too that you can come and visit us at Chesapeake Biological Lab at the Visitor Center too once things open back up. We have some of the dolphin pictures on the walls, and we have some videos there too, and some cool shirts and stuff. And so you can kind of see our research site if you would like. And also thank you again for everyone that's still here. We really appreciated being invited to speak.
And I can't wait to meet the new dolphin named Bronwyn that you're going to be naming. So that will be great.
I'll send you a picture.
Thanks so much. Everybody stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you soon. Stay curious and keep learning, everybody. Share what you've learned here with others. Good night.